Well, welcome everyone to today's virtual tour. My name is Dwayne Bernardson. I'm the Business Development Manager with Beta Seed, and we represent the Feed Beet brand. So just want to give that introduction to me, as well as my colleague, our Regional Sales Manager, Joe Freiberger. So that's our team that's here today on our side. We appreciate you guys taking the time and coming this Saturday afternoon to learn a little bit. I was reminded early on, if you would at least put your phone on vibrate, if not turn it off, so that we can let the rovies go through without any interruptions. I want to start with just a couple things before I get the rovies up, and actually have a little video from the Dairy Export Council that gives a great introduction to them and their operation. So I want to start with that right away.
I grew up on this ground, on this dairy, in this area, helping on the farm, helping milking cows, doing all the things that kids should do on a dairy and living in a rural area. I started driving tractors when I was 6 years old, and because it was a case of my dad needed a tractor driver and I was available, so we're going to get you, and taught me how to drive the tractor. As we've developed over the years, the town has actually moved in around us, and now I'm an island of dairy and farm in the middle of the city. We work very hard as a dairy to be good neighbors with our city. We milk about 2,000 cows here on the dairy. We have about 50 employees on the dairy and the farm. We farm about 1,800 acres, grow all of our own corn silage, grow all of our own sorghum silage, all of our own alfalfa hay. We bring in fresh feed off of the fields 365 days a year to feed to the cattle. It's a very good way of bringing the nutrition to them. It's fresh, it smells good, they really like to consume it. You know, my kids are going to take over the dairy, and when I step out of the way, and they'll continue that tradition on with their children, just as I did with my dad and my dad did with his dad. It is very much a family-run, family-owned industry across the United States. Back when my grandfather Albert was farming, you know, he wouldn't have had the dream of being able to export anything out of the country. We export a large amount of our production out of Arizona, and that production goes out to the world. It goes to I think 47 different countries around the world. My co-op, United Dairymen of Arizona, sells quite a bit of milk every year, or milk powders, into Vietnam. My milk has a very good chance of being served to somebody in Vietnam or even in Southeast Asia. I see the United States as being the greatest dependable country for producing milk needed around the world, because we can do it 12 months out of the year. We have an abundant supply, we have the availability, we can produce it. I see the United States as eventually being the leader in world supply of dairy products.
This gives you a good quick overview of rovies and of Paul. And I just going to start here by first introducing Paul, and then I'll turn it over to him. I'll start. I had the opportunity to meet Paul several years ago as we had our Feed Beet Field Day, and I'm a guy from Minnesota, from the Midwest. It was a different experience for me coming to Arizona. Like Paul said, delivering feed 365 days a year. So not only are they milking, but they're farming and doing that. But as I met Paul in his big straw hat on that 105-degree day for a field day, which we don't normally try to do in Minnesota, but that was one thing. The other thing that I think is a signature trademark, there's two I'll mention of Paul, is one, he was wearing sandals, so that was another thing that I don't typically see in the Midwest, but I understand very well now. The other thing is, which Joe told me, Joe works closely with the rovies, and that the thing about Paul and the rovies is you're not dealing with a partner, you're dealing with a friend. And that's what Joe said as well, that really reiterates what you get out of that, and having the honor to meet with them. The picture down here, I'll point out, Paul's not getting his makeup, but that was a clip for RFD TV. They were gracious to host us on that as we talked about that. And I'll let Paul talk about the rest of it and introduce his supporting cast and his operation at Rovies.
Okay, thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate that. The bottom one here? Yep. Okay. No, on the back side. This side. Oh, that triggers it? Yep. Okay. All right. Well, appreciate that. And I'm glad you're all here. Appreciate you coming to see about our family farm, as well as our opportunity for growing feed beets. To kind of fill in this picture, the reason I'm sitting down, if you look at my leg right here, I had just gotten out of the hospital on an ankle surgery the day before, so I barely made the video. And then the other picture in the corner there is DMI and Fuel Up to Play 60 program. That's something I'm extremely involved with. It's a tremendous program. This was our opportunity to announce a $30 million feeding program in partnership with USDA, and a tremendous opportunity for all of dairy as utilizing dairy in the schools. Let me click. Now this is my family, and I've come along with my son Mark here and my son Brett. They both are here. They both will slip in comments if I'll let them. And I think the picture down there, we grow Watusis as well as Jerseys, and it's a pretty unique animal. It's an African animal. They have a pretty big horn and a pretty big horn span, but they're very tame. We train them to ride. We put them in parades. We take them to schools. We let school kids come to visit the dairy, see the Watusis. So it's this is my daughter. We entered a Klaus chopper contest with the picture every year, and she had just gotten married a little bit before we needed to turn in the picture, so we shot a picture of them throwing the bouquet inside of a corral, kind of a made up one, but what the heck, you know, you got to do those kind of things. And then this is Mark with some of our Watusis again. I have 5 children. My son Eric in that picture would have been in Alaska flying airplanes. So, and this on the video, my father, when he came home from college in 1943, bought the farm that we're still farming on now, that we presently are farming. And this is a picture in 1951 of him. But he was born and raised in Arizona. My mother was born and raised in Arizona. We've been in Arizona since 1912, so 104 years in the valley there. And it's changed a lot. We've gone from a very rural, urban, very, very rural, back whenever I was a kid, up until I was 10 years old. The road in front of our house was a dirt road. It changed to a 2-lane pavement road, and then now it's basically a 6-lane road that we have to cross with our feet, as you'll see. This is an entry feature on our dairy that tells all. We do, as you see, the firewood, and see the thing on the bottom, firewood, organic, GMO-free, gluten-free, low carb, and local. So we market to all the crazy things. The road in front of the dairy is the one we have to cross, because our feed is on one side of the road, the dairy is on the other side of the road. We put these banners up in front of the dairy to kind of block off so that it doesn't necessarily look like a dairy. We have pastures, some green pastures, and we pasture some sheep around there to try to make it as attractive as we can for the neighbors and for any passers-by. This is my family way back whenever Brett was just a baby. He's the youngest. He's being held with my oldest daughter's sitting there. there they are now with our good Jersey cows in the picture. Do you guys think of anything that I need to tell about the family? Other than, we could flip it forward. That previous picture, as you know, I don't know if Jerseys are the most curious cows in the world. They come and mob you. They're very tame, very curious, and will come up and visit you in a minute. So, and this is, I'm president of United Dairymen of Arizona. That's our co-op. It's a co-op of 65 members in our membership. Our co-op is about 4.2 billion pounds of milk. We're, I think, either 9th or 10th on the co-op list in Arizona. I mean, in the United States. So we're not big, but we're not small. The other one's member of Farm Bureau. Was in Project Central leadership. That's kind of what got me started in all the different leadership avenues. And the other two is the U.S. Dairy Export Council. I'm chairman of U.S. Dairy Export Council, which is as the video that we saw in the front of it, really a great opportunity for us, for our checkoff dollars, to help assist dairy exporting to the world, where we're going to help feed the world and get good products up there for them. And then the top one is Dairy Management Incorporated, chairman of DMI, and that's a amalgamation of some of the state and regionals around the country and the National Dairy Board, where all the different programs, Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy, the Sustainability Council, Dairy Council, all the different arms of the checkoff are housed basically at DMI. And I'm not going to read everything here, but as you can, some of the things is that we take extremely good care of our animals. We really, that's an important aspect of it. If we don't take care of the animals, they can't produce and take care of us. We have good, safe, wholesome milk that leaves the dairy. It's tested before it's loaded up. We really work hard at preserving all the natural resources and making sure that we treat all of that in a very positive way and treat it well. We work very hard at being good neighbors with our neighbors. We do a number of things to try to make sure that we don't impact them in a negative way, and that they appreciate us being there alongside them as neighbors, because it's going to be a while still before we can move out of the city. We compost a tremendous amount of our manure, not all, but a tremendous amount, and probably at least 50% of it we sell to the neighbors. And this is one of the kind of the good neighbor things is we sell it to the neighbors in a very inexpensive price, so that they appreciate us being there, and that they can then grow their vegetables in their gardens and their stuff, and they come in and tell us about all the stories about how good their tomatoes are and their different crops are. So we do the Jerseys, the Watusis. We have just a few brown Swiss left, not many, and we started a number of years ago raising club calves for the 4-H and FFA kids, and I did that as an opportunity to give students in 4-H and FFA kids that didn't have an opportunity of getting a steer, a reasonably priced steer that they could take to the 4-H program, learn how to take care of it, learn responsibility, learn that about animal agriculture, take it to the fair, and be able to sell it at a price that they made some money. And that was kind of our guarantee, is if the kid goes through all those things and then loses money because he had to pay too much for his steer in the first place, that's a negative. It puts a negative on it. Whereas if they can raise that steer, put a little money in their pocket, they're going to be animal advocates for the rest of their lives. And so this is my way of helping to do that. Another thing that we've started is Dorper sheep and Friesian sheep, and Mark's kind of taking care of that aspect of it for us. And we're going to be starting to milk the sheep here, and within 6 months we'll be milking the sheep. We're making the corrals right now. Going to build a barn and start milking sheep and making sheep cheese, which is not cheap cheese. So we're a twice a day milking facility, double 16 parallel, rapid exit. We push the cows through there. We have half of the dairy is Saudi style corrals with coolers. We have coolers on all the cows, milking and dry. And because in Arizona, as you know, it gets extremely hot, so we have coolers on all of the corrals that the heifers don't, but the milking and dry cows have coolers on it. We have about 45 employees. I was a little high on the video there of the number of employees, and we feed with a Laird mixer wagon that works really well for us. We've actually tried a number of them. We're most pleased with the Laird. That's not an advertisement for Laird. That's just something that is a fact. Mark, do you have anything to talk about of the club calf thing? Anything? Oh, in a little bit? Okay. Okay. You can read the numbers there. We're milking about 2,000. We don't, we're not super high on the milk production, but our cost of production per hundredweight is lower than our net nutritionist says that by the way we feed, what kind of feeds we grow with utilizing the sugar beet, our cost of per hundredweight is lower than anybody that he does any work for. So it's a real opportunity for us. And we grow, like they said, there all the crops that you see on the screen there, and we're like it said in the video, it's 365 days of farming. We do rotate through the different crops. Like it shows up there, we grow about 80% of the feed on the dairy because we're growing the sugar beets. We're able to replace corn and corn silage with the sugar beets, and so that allows us to get where we have a higher percentage. We can feed a higher percentage of stuff we grow in the dairy because by growing the beets to replace the corn. To speak a little bit about the sugar beets, they are drought tolerant. They don't mature like it says on there. You can continue leaving them in the ground. They just keep getting bigger and bigger, and the fiber stays just as digestible. The sugar stays just the same percentage of sugar. You just get a bigger and bigger crop to harvest. So it allows a big window for us to harvest them. We plant the beets in September. We start harvesting in February, and we'll harvest them fresh, feeding them fresh, through to the middle to the end of June. During that same time, we're bagging the beets, and so it allows us to now feed beets 12 months out of the year by utilizing that system. They use water tremendously well. On our sugar beets, we only use about 2/3 of the water that we would use on a corn silage crop, and they're very salt tolerant. And in Arizona, there's quite a bit of salty ground, so that's a real big aspect of it. This is where our dairy's at, in the middle of the Phoenix Valley there. Whoop! How do I go back? So this is, if any of you have watched the Super Bowls, there's the stadium that the Super Bowl is played in and the Cardinals play in, and there's my dairy in a very close proximity, about this little shy of 2 miles away is my dairy. Here's an aerial of the dairy and the farm, and there's the road that splits the two that we have to traverse probably about 30 times a day with our feed wagon across that road. So it presents some real challenges. There's the population of Glendale and Phoenix, the metro area, and that number's probably low because we continue to have growth and people moving into the Phoenix area. There's a shot of the dairy and the farm is in the foreground, and the stadium is in the background there. Most of what you see green in that picture is fields that we're farming. You know, a dairy can have some odor every once in a while, and we work extremely hard at eliminating minimizing the odors as much as we can. We use a flush tank for half of the dairy. The other half is in the standard kind of dry lot. So the soddy barns and these front corrals are all flushed. In that stream, we put this product that's called odorator. My word for it is it smells good because it takes the smell completely out of the water stream. Basically eliminates the smell, and it also digests the solids in it. So we don't have the lagoons belching and bubbling up all of the methane and the different things. It really helps tremendously. It's a tremendously good product. If our tank ever runs empty or our pump quits, when I drive on the dairy, I know immediately, somebody hasn't, we need to go fix the thing. And then as soon as we get the stuff back in there, it eliminates the odor. We also manage our corrals really tightly, scraping them every single day. When the cows leave the pen, we scrape the corrals to spread the manure out so that we don't have fly breeding, so that we eliminate any as much odor as we can. We do store some dry manure in the corral, so when it does rain, we can put dry manure in for the bedding underneath the shades for them for laying down. A thing we started about 4 or 5 years ago, a guy came to us and said, "Hey, you're in the county. We can hunt birds. We can shoot pigeons and doves and all the biz. We have way too many birds. We can shoot the birds on your dairy. Could we do a wounded warrior hunt deal?" And so we started twice a year, once in the first season, once in the second season. We do a wounded veterans hunt, and here's this is a picture of one of the veterans at the first one. Has no legs, has half of one arm, and the individual standing by him would prepare the gun for him, hand it to him, and he could hit way better than I could. Extremely better. He could hit anything just like that. It was really it was tremendous. It's really heartening when I go there on those days to see all the veterans and see how they're enjoying it. It's a nice deal, and they don't have to travel very far because we're in the middle of the city. We also take the Watusis that in parades. Here's anybody tell me what kind of car that is? No? No? No, it used to be a Cadillac. Now it's a Cadillac. So we take the steers in parades. It's a great way of at least having some interface with. We don't, as an ag industry, have enough interface with the population as we should and need to in the future. So this is one way that we do participate in having the community stuff going on. Yeah. Our first big steer was called Beauregard. That's why he asked the question. And this is and there's my three of us, Brett and Mark and I, with Terry Bradshaw at one of the Fuel Up to Play events in Phoenix. There, we had an opportunity to. He's quite a guy. He's an amazing guy. Just a tremendous, funny and really interesting. Mark, tell us about the club calf stuff. Tell us a little bit how many, where's that mic? No.
All right. So the club calves, we just, whenever I was younger, my dad would had a herd that we'd raised, and then I took over and just got a little more serious on the genetics of them. But you guys can hear me, right? Okay. Now we have an auction every year. The local kids come. We've had some interest out of state with people wanting to purchase some of the steers and some of the genetics, but we try to keep it local and affordable for the kids that can do it. And now they've become quite competitive. We've had a bunch of grand champions in other counties, our county, state, the Arizona National Show. So it's just become a good program and been pretty competitive in the last 3 or 4 years. So. Oh yeah, we do anything that the kids need help with. Their hoof trimming, even some finance stuff for the kids if they can't afford them. Off the bat, we'll finance them for them throughout the fair. Feed stuff if they need help with really anything, when they can come out and learn with us, or work with them even ahead of time to make sure that they're even interested before they go ahead and start a project. But it just helps get them involved, and we'll have probably 50% of the local show will be from our livestock. So we've got a big number in there that we help out with.
Because if we didn't have those students wouldn't be able to have an animal ag experience, and that's it's a great thing. It's just really a good opportunity. Even though it's not dairy, they still eat feed beets, I'm telling you. So they love them. So this is just a little picture of Arizona. We're just shy of 200,000 cows. While I said there's 65 dairymen in UDA, there's about 90 dairies, physical facilities. So some guys own 2 of them. So the size of the herd is a little over 2,000. In Arizona, those are some of the cash crops that are grown. You can see on this graph there the kind of the temperatures, average temperatures, and then also the rainfall. So we get a total of about 8 inches of rain throughout the year, and it gets tremendously hot in the summertime. So it's a little bit of a quandary of a place to have agriculture. But the old saying is Arizona grows where water flows, and I think that's the next picture. So we flood irrigate all of our crops. We use the border system. We make borders, and then the water comes down from the reservoirs through the canal system into our ditches, then floods out through the fields. And you see we laser level them so that they're perfectly level, flood the water out onto the crop. And we can, Brett, how many inches of water did we use on corn, and how many inches on beets about?
We use about 4 to...
Did you turn your mic on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
We use about 4 to 6 acre feet on corn crop, and sugar beet can use anywhere from 2.5 to 3. And so it's a significant loss in water.
Not loss,
or
savings.
A savings in water.
Yeah, it's a big savings in water. And water costs us. It's not like it's free. Every acre foot of water costs us a significant amount. So we try to use as little as we can to grow as big a crop as we can. So it's a real tight management scenario of making sure that every drop of it goes to beneficial use. Feed beets. The super highly digestible fiber, as you see up there, it gives a tremendous amount of energy to the cows. While somebody would say, gee, you're feeding them all that sugar at the time, do you have stomach upsets? Do you have any kind of problems in that? with the sugar inside of the fiber, it binds it, so it's a little bit of a slow release of the sugar, so it releases to the animal in a balanced way, so we don't have any kind of challenges with feeding the beets. You can feed a tremendous amount of dry matter per cow per day. We use very little commercial fertilizer, a little, not nearly the amount as we use on corn to grow. It helps the soil tremendously. By that big deep root, it burrows down and makes the dirt and the soil a lot better for drainage, and helps to leach any salts that we might have out of the soil. Way more dry matter per acre or whatever than we can get with corn silage. Our yields on corn silage are roughly about 32 tons. Our yields on the beets will run anywhere from 55 to 62 tons to the acre. So it's a tremendous gain on yield, as well as less water being used. And then here is a picture of we did some video of my son Brett did some video of some of our beet stuff with a drone. Brett, if you see anything you want to talk about, this is you see the palm trees in the background. My dad was a nut about palm trees, so we have a lot of palm trees around. But there's some of the fields there that are in the city. This is our digging operation. We have an Amity digger that really does a really nice job of digging the beets. And you see they just keep pouring in there. It's pretty amazing to see those things being dug. You can feed beets with the tops on. You can dig them with the tops on. And in our case, we did that for the first years, but then my nutritionist kept limiting the amount of beets that we were feeding, and it was like, what in the heck is wrong? And he said, well, because you have the top on, you have a lot of nitrogen and some extra fiber in there, so I got to limit the amount of beets, because then you have alfalfa that has the nitrogen. So he says you either got to feed less alfalfa, more corn silage, or top the beets. And so we started topping the beets. But that opportunity, as you know, is whatever your scenario is. If you have predominantly corn silage, not a lot of alfalfa, leave the top on, dig it, feed it, and you're off and running. So it's a lot of opportunity for how you can manage. This is just some of the aerial of the and I'd mentioned that we bag them. We at the present time are mixing them with dry chopped alfalfa to soak up the moisture as they're in the bag, so that we don't lose any of the nutrients, nutrients out of there. This is just a picture of one of the machines that we use to put the beets into the bag with. We put in the dry chop alfalfa, have the beets in there, blend it a little bit, go stick it into the bagger and dump it into the bagger. You do not have to do with a mixer wagon. We also load into the bagger with a big semi-tractor that has a scale on it, a end loading truck. We just bed the bottom with the alfalfa, put the beets on the top, and back the truck in and feed it in. As you'll see in the bagger here, this is that one dumping into it. The blending and mixing opportunity that happens in those fingers does a fine job, even if we're not putting it in with a mixer wagon, if we're just putting it in with the truck. And so the bagger bags it really well with the right percentage of dry chop alfalfa. You don't have any runoff coming off of the bag, and it you see there the fingers just chomp that stuff and blend the heck out of it as it's going into the bag. The beets are about 20% dry matter, roughly in that neck of the woods, similar to what we would feed green chop at. We chop our green chop maybe just a little bit drier than that, but generally about that same amount. No, you really don't need them because the bagger cuts it up enough. And then we've tried it this year. We've tried taking the beets and feeding them directly into the bag without mixing it, but then we have a lot of water, and so we're experimenting with the financial aspects of we've taken a vacuum trailer, sucked off the water, put it in an extra molasses tank, analyzed it, and then the nutritionists were feeding that liquid, feeding it to the cows. So all told, we're seeing where our best financial aspect is you can't put as many tons per foot in the bag because you can't with just straight beets because you blow the bag. So you got to just put less tons per foot, so you get less efficiency there, but you don't have to do the extra step of mixing. So we're looking at other ways of trying to handle the beets to get it even cheaper yet of handling them. But the way it is, it's a very economical crop to grow and to feed.
The mixer will process the beets if you leave them in there longer. So the way that you were seeing it on the video, it was just to load into the bagger to get a mix. But if you put just whole beets in that mixer, it will process the beets too, small enough to feed.
Just takes a little longer.
So when you're harvesting those,
About 20% dry matter. Yeah. Yeah. And then, so with the alfalfa in the bag, it comes out in the way it's particularly, we predominantly load them with the semi, and the fingers slice up the beet. You probably only have about 15% of the beet. The beets are not broken or mashed some way, but by the time it's ensiled, it's a soft, palatable beet. And so in the mixer wagon, as you're normally mixing, it breaks that up. You have very little whole beets ever show up in the bunk. It works real well in that ensiling process. To feed fresh, I forgot to mention how we feed them fresh. We just dig them, put them on the slab with the semi trucks, and then scoop them up and put them in a slinger. Does everybody know what a slinger is? It's a manure spreader, and we just sling them into our commodity bin, and they are broken up really well, and you scoop them up and put them in the mixer wagon, or you can let the mixer mix them and slice them up, but it takes just a little longer. The slinger is pretty quick. You can run the beets, a lot of beets through a slinger in a short order. It's a pretty fast aspect. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, good question. Because we're Arizona and it's dry, and another aspect is it's we cut the water off at least minimum of 2 weeks ahead. We like to cut the water off 3 to 4 weeks ahead, so it kind of and the amazing thing is that little stressing somehow makes the sugar content higher, so they come out with a higher sugar content. When the digger pops them out, there's very little dirt on them. The digger knocks all the dirt off as it comes up the chains, and they're actually lower ash in our beets than in our baled alfalfa hay. So it's very little ashes that you just. And we have a little sandier soil than probably. I think they'd be okay. You just might have to figure out a way to clean them or something there. So, but that's there's another company that works with Beta Seed that is working on ways of. Dwayne can probably speak to that.
Yeah, I'll just so in the sugar beet industry, they don't want to deliver more than 3.5% dirt. So the harvester that Paul has does a really good job, no matter what the conditions are. It really works to get to no more than, so you're set right, you'll load no more than about 3.5%. tear with it is the goal.
Yeah. Roughly, on all of our crops, on every acre, on an average, it's probably 4.5 acre feet of water, you know, per acre, yes. Yeah, 4.5 acre feet. Well, yeah, evaporation is a thing that happens in Arizona because of the heat and the generally lower humidity most of the times of the year. We have about 9.5 feet of evaporation. So if you have a 9.5 foot column of water on January 1, by December 31st, that's evaporated out. Is there? So we have a lot of evaporation in Arizona. So we try to manage for that by the flood irrigation in this aspect. We keep it on a border, we flood it out, it sinks in, it goes, and so we have a pretty easy way of managing it. So, other questions? Why the harvester silos in there? Well, we used to put our grain into them and digest ferment the grain, whether it was corn, barley, or Milo. It worked really well on Milo, and then we'd roll it out of the harvesters, and it worked extremely well. Then my harvesters I'd still be doing it today. I can't, but we started popping pinhole leaks in the glass, and so that I no longer have an oxygen barrier structure there. So we now use it for storage and whatnot. But they worked really well. It's a great process. Other questions?
How does the cows handle the heat out there?
Well, like I say, we have coolers on every milking and dry cow. And the coolers are similar to, some of the big fans and stuff you see around the show here with the water. All of our coolers are the same you're seeing. It's a big airstream blowing down on the cows, or they fan them with then moisture emitted into that airstream where it gets on the cow. And we generally try to, at least in Arizona, because of the kind of the evaporation aspect, we try to get the cow maybe just a little bit damp. That way, as that water is evaporating off of her, it's pulling out actually more heat. And then whenever they go to the barn, we completely soak them in the barn, and then have big fans and blowers in the barn to cool them down in the barn. Then when they finish milking, as they walk out of the barn, we have an exit sprayer that soaks them again. And then they go back and they can eat. And then they're in under the coolers, and that's the beauty of what we termed a Saudi barn. And the reason they call it a Saudi barn is because these barns were first designed and used in Saudi Arabia, and then they brought that concept back to Arizona. And the cooler company that builds all the coolers for the Saudi Arabian one is actually in Arizona. Their manufacturing facilities in Arizona, and so these big coolers blow onto the cows, and so in all those aspects, the Saudi barn really works the best for us, because the cow doesn't have to decide, do I want to be cool or do I want to go eat? Because it's all under the cooling is under the shade, the feeding is under the shade, everything's together. Where the standard old Arizona style corral, the coolers and the shade is in the middle of the corral, the feed bunk's out here, so the cow has to decide which one she wants to do. And which one do you think she does? She takes the cooler. She doesn't go eat. And so the Saudi barn really works well for us in that aspect of it. So, other questions? Yep.
Since you're in town and you're trying to keep down the odors, would a manure digester be beneficial to you?
You know, when I build my next dairy, it'll absolutely 100% unequivocally have a digester, absolutely. But because I'm in the city, and I've contemplated even building one in the city, but for the cost and the time frame that you need to capitalize it and utilize it, it wouldn't be very economical for me where I'm at. Because I'm hoping to move out to further out, not out of state, but still in Arizona, but further away from the city, where I can build a facility that'll then be good for 40, 50 years and not have to worry about it, and then it'll absolutely have a digester. And not because of the odor as much, but because of all the other opportunities that are really available and coming in having a digester. That some of the work that the Sustainability Council at DMI is doing is vetting and proving and getting that aspect of how to handle the manure, where we can help producers be able to not have to have a fits and starts on digesters or any equipment that they would have handling manure. That the Sustainability Council, the Innovation Center, is working on that. And the technology and the information there that's available and coming is really tremendous for the dairy industry. The dairy industry has, in my mind, a tremendously bright future. It's going to change. We will have change, but that change will bring a tremendous bright future for us, because we have opportunities. Not only do we have the best nutrient food, but we're going to be able to turn our manure into power and into gathering back the nutrients out of it to sell back or to use on our own fields, or those kind of aspects. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity for that. So I'm nothing but bullish on the dairy industry and our opportunity. We're going to have our tough times, and we're going to have highs and lows, but the dairy industry is really a great livelihood and a great opportunity for anybody. Well, I'm really biased, so I'm going to answer it in his. Yeah, I'm gonna. The question was, is Jersey the optimum breed that, or am I thinking about trying another breed or another mix of breeds? And I gotta come up. I'm really biased now about Jerseys, and as Michelle knows, in our board meetings, Michelle, the only kind of cow to milk is a Jersey. And now I'm going to give you the why that I think. The why that I think is I used to have Holsteins. When I bought the dairy from my father back in 1978, it was 100% Holstein dairy. So then I said, you know what? I want to have not only Holstein calves for my kids to show, I want to have some Jerseys. So I went to a neighbor lady, had sold her milking herd and had kept her heifer herd. And so I went there to get a few Jerseys from her, to be a few springers, so we could have Jersey show calves. And while we were there, you get carried away, and pretty quick I'd bought all 375 of them. Her whole heifer program, which gave her the opportunity to go on her trips a lot sooner than she was going to do before, because she was going to raise them all through. So anyways, we get we get the heifers home, they start calving. Well, you know that a Jersey is quite a bit different sized as a Holstein. So they start coming in my milk barn, and they start doing trips around in the thing. So that was like, this is a problem. So I then, another neighbor dairyman said, hey, Al Luke, he took out an indexing barn, and it's sitting in his junkyard. You ought to call him and see if he would sell it to you. So I called Al and said, Al, I'd like to get indexing barn. He says, "Oh, son, go get it. It's yours. It's just junk. Go whatever you would use." So I put the indexing barn. So that solved the milking barn. Then we were raising the calves, and we could not save a calf to save our souls. I mean, we were raising them like Holsteins, and while that's okay, it's not as good as you need to be. And so we really had to bone up. And in fact, at one point, I called the gentleman that helped me go buy them from her. I called him and said, "Hey, you need to sell these things for me because I can't take this anymore. But luckily, he didn't find a buyer. Luckily, we learned how to raise the calves. We put them in their own pens. We had the indexing barn. Pretty quick, we said, these are pretty good cows. So we started being a sponge for jerseys from all over. We got jerseys from all regions of the country and grew the jerseys up where we had basically, and then we bought another facility, and we had a Holstein dairy and a Jersey dairy with the same employees, the same feed, essentially balancing the Jersey rations for Jersey, balancing the Holstein rations for Holsteins, and it was night and day. Jerseys were just so much better, so much more efficient. So we'd figured out how to raise the calves, and we had a barn we could milk them in. So we just kept with the Jerseys and we eliminated the Holsteins and grew the Jerseys to where we're at.
I think what you're getting at is, it doesn't matter if they're Jerseys or Holsteins.
Yeah, feed beets are I mean, I'm sold on the feed beets. It's just a no. Just like corn and barley, it's just that the Jerseys are a little more efficient converters. In hot weather, Jerseys work extremely well. Jerseys are a great breed for any kind of, even though we put cooling on them, the cooling is even more beneficial than on a Jersey.
With the cooling too, the jerseys, we have Holstein guys down the road, and we turn our coolers and fans and misters on about a month after they do, and shut them off about a month before they do, and we still get the reproductive. We don't see a dip in reproduction or breeding and pregnancies when we do that. The Holstein guys have to, in that climate, have to run their coolers and misters sooner and later than we do because they just don't get them pregnant. They just don't handle the heat, where the Jerseys don't miss a beat, and they don't see a big dip in production in the heat either. So they handle our climate a little bit better.
And to tell why that's important, at our peak months on our coolers, on our dairy, on our 2,000 cow dairy, our electric bill will be north of $40,000 a month. So it's a chunk of change every month to run those coolers. It's a sugar beet. No, because you balance your rations. You're just balancing the ration for the nutrients that are in the sugar beets, and I know a number of nutritionists are. Yeah. Nutritionists. Our nutritionist was real skeptical at first. He was willing to give it a whirl, but he's proven that you can feed a tremendous amount, because we've pushed the limit on some of the rations, and we've really pushed the limit. It's amazing how many pounds of sugar beets you can feed in a ration, and no trouble with the cows, no trouble with diets at all. So they're oh, and our calves. Right now we're on our jerseys we're maybe just a little bit over 2% death loss. So we figured out how to raise Jersey calves. So it's and it's just a learning process, I mean, as you got to figure out all the nooks and crannies of how to do it. Any other questions? Our Our longest horn from tip to tip was, and he died 2 years ago, and he was 23 years old. And so that means that I've been doing it for, 30 years. Because is General Crook. And he was 10 feet 9 inches tip to tip. And that's not measuring the curve. That's from tip to tip as the crow
The
flies.
curve was over 11'6" with the curve included.
So he was a pretty impressive animal. Pretty impressive. Yeah.
Water resources being one of those future issues that we're all going to face with. How do you view that being in Arizona and what those future kind of issues are going to be?
Arizona has been probably more proactive on water issues than most other states, particularly more than California. We have basically in Arizona adjudicated all the water rights in the big water areas. Some of the areas of Arizona haven't been. There's some little pockets that hasn't been adjudicated. And so what that means is everybody knows what their water rights are and what they have to do to maintain that availability. And so we don't have a real threat of water shortages. While if we have a drought that continues for 10 or 15 years, we'll probably have to do something, but then it's going to be probably an equal ratcheting down of everybody's water rights that they'll have to learn how to do that. I think agriculture is somewhat suited well for the water aspect, while some people may say, drip tape is an opportunity, which it is, but what our neighbors have, there's a number of farmers that are toying with, experimenting with the drip tape. What they're finding is like on an alfalfa crop, it does not decrease the amount of water you use versus a flood irrigation. It's almost identical but the yield is about a third again more than you're going to get. So you can farm fewer acres, same amount of ground, same amount of water, but a bigger yield. So you can have less acres that you're doing that on. So with drip tape, So that some of that technology will come about. With other water purification systems, we can take the effluent water from the cities and put it out onto the farm ground, and are now doing that and continue to do it more as it goes about. So that I'm not really as skeptical on water availability, particularly in Arizona. I think Arizona we're going to be okay because of the adjudication, because of the things that happened previous years that they kind of set the playing book. Everybody knows what they're playing with. So you have your water rights that you're given. Other questions? Yeah.
You have like something, and you have to do your crop farming 300 There's no vacation for you. Us Midwesterners do our thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, we try to fit a little vacation in every once in a while. So yeah, it's
Everyone I've talked to so far that's not from Arizona has been surprised that we can get 12 to 13 cuttings of alfalfa a year. So we can cut about 18, every 18 days we can cut alfalfa.
Yeah. And basically have to in the summertime every 18 days just to maintain the quality, so that we get good quality going to the cow. The whole goal in doing all this farming is to make sure that you are raising the right crop to feed the cows the best way you can, to then get the output, the manure to come back on. And the other thing that is just, we only actually started back. I grew up on the farm. We've owned the farm ground all the time. But when I bought the dairy, I didn't do the farming stuff. So my brother did some. We rented some of our farm ground out to other people, and only about 6 years ago did I say, "Nah, I'm going to take an